But hello and welcome to another episode of Kitchen Conversations with James and Rama. Today we'll be discussing what do people buy online, trying to understand demand side of the marketplace, the e-commerce, and Rama. We also have a quick update about what's going on in our lives with COVID-19, with recent government updates in Australia. Can you share about that?
Yeah, interesting thing that was announced recently. So it looks like the government has this plan to get us out of this lockdown. They're calling it a three-phase plan, and they're going to implement, I think, one phase every 4 weeks is what I've heard, and then it will just continue to progress. I haven't really seen the high-level detail. I mean, if you have any detail on each phase, James, feel free to chime in. But I believe like they're going to start with cafes and gyms, I think, and then outdoor gathering will be the first one to be able to people can return to, and then they'll I think move on to things like the workplace, and then I guess the last phase should be sort of returning back to normal, which I'm hoping is the case, but with social distancing still in place until a vaccine is available. I think that's what the gist of it is. Can you elaborate on that?
My understanding was very much is schools go back, or we'll be able to then start going back into offices in and around July, depending on how we go with each of the stages before, and I'll just keep reviewing it constantly. But it's a good trajectory that we're on in terms of getting back to life as we know it, but also getting used to some of the precautionary measures we've been taking with social distance will become part of that everyday normal, which will be interesting. But I'm excited because it hopefully means the wedding we're planning with me and my fiance can go ahead as planned with very little interruption, is what I'm hoping.
Yes. Well, I mean, we do have time, so, you never know.
Yeah, it could be a really bad winter. Who knows?
Who knows?
The wrong kind of going viral.
Yes, exactly. Miss them jokes. Well, I guess that's kind of the update that we got for that. But I mean, if let's get into the topic that we've mentioned at the top of the show, demand for e-commerce. So I mean, look, I mean, these topics are very, I guess, very related to each other. Every week we've been discussing e-commerce or just retail in general. But I guess since we are in this COVID world that we're in at the moment, e-commerce has been very important and has been very prevalent. And to be honest, a lot of the businesses are actually staying in business because of their e-commerce presence. So I think if you watched the news the other day, Kathmandu said that their sales have tripled online. So even though they don't have any stores open. So and I guess the first phase potentially could mean that a lot of these retailers could again open their doors, but it might just mean that they might reduce their footprint again, isn't it? So and then just focus on their online presence. So anyway, to get back on topic with demand, what are your thoughts on what drives demand, I guess, when it comes to
I guess the highest kind of philosophical level, it's satisfying somebody's need or want, helping somebody solve a problem, often if it's a service or in a product, giving them something that they require. So it's something that's I find really interesting to think about, because it's the behavior each of us does and what we do and choose, and trying to observe what it is and understand why it is, and often spend a lot of time dwelling on why does someone buy this but not that, and trying to figure out the differences in those things.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's an interesting point. I mean, from a philosophical level, I guess so. I mean, yes, I agree. But at the same time, we are living in the 21st century. There are definitely a lot of other factors that they're now.
Hey, Mom, you're walking through the back of my live stream.
It's always the case. I'm always interested to just see doors open in the back end. You can edit this in post.
It's great. We can
I'm
rewind
sorry,
on the
just
live
threw me
feed.
off a bit that doors are just opening in the back. So I'm sorry, Jimmy. Didn't mean that.
Yeah.
Anyway, 3, 2, 1, go.
We're back.
um, yes, from a philosophical level, I agree. But like I said, we live in the 21st century, which means there's new aspects that come into play here. One aspect that I can say is probably social media, a very, very big factor in what drives demand, surprisingly, um, due to popularity or trends. And the other term that all, I guess, e-commerce, gurus or e-commerce people love to use is FOMO,
Yep.
as you know. So the fear of missing out is something that would definitely play a major role in the 21st century e-commerce or demand, right? And then next week we'll discuss supply, but I guess for me that's what I feel like from what I've learned in the last couple of weeks learning into e-commerce is that comes into play a lot more than just these days, just even more than need. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just having the latest thing or the latest coolest thing that's that influencers are flogging out there is more important than the actual need of or even the functionality of that damn thing, right?
Definitely. Like
So
I've all the teeth whitening ads that come up for different things. It's like, how healthy are some of these products? Is often the question I have in my mind. If my teeth work and do their job and they look reasonable, I'm content as a consumer and a buyer, and I don't have the demand for teeth as white as snow.
yep. And yes, I mean that the ad, the targeted ads, right? There's targeted ads definitely come into play here. And surprisingly, with big data and data mining is in where it is at the moment, it's just amazing how much data we give out for free to these advertisers or to these guys, right? To the Googles and the Facebooks and the Apples of the world. Like we're just giving this stuff away for free. And I think, and everyone keeps saying, Amazon don't listen to you or Google don't listen to you. You know what? To be honest, it's obvious. I think they do. 110%. Look,
Yeah.
I mean, not to get into the paranoid side of me, but I've seen ads come up that I definitely don't have, definitely did not search on my computer. Potentially somebody else might be using the PC and then entering things into official sites like government sites or whatever. And then suddenly now because they've entered the word, NDIS or disabled, and so now I'm suddenly getting ads for disability services. From companies saying, "Hey, we offer these," and I'm like, "Well, I've never really, delved into it." And then the thing is, the person that used my computer, she does work in that field. She works with, she works for with those disability caring field, and she used my computer one time to do her Centrelink stuff, and now I'm getting bombarded with these ads. And like I said, the thing is, and I can't remember the other one. I was just the example was on top of my head. It's gone now, but
One
I definitely mentioned
example.
things. Yeah, we've discussed things that we definitely did not type into anywhere, but our phones went by.
Yeah, and I
And I'm
think I
pretty sure it was
remember
speeding.
in a legal case in America where a Amazon device was subpoenaed for voice recordings for a legal matter to try and sort out what happened and become evidence. I can't remember what the outcome was, but it painted an interesting picture of the technology we use and how it's used around us.
Yes, and I think that's what, like I said, yeah. So that's what kind of drives demand these days is targeted ads, like
Hmm.
um, targeted ads, social media ads. I mean, that's where Google and Facebook make all their money these days, right? They don't really have much paid services, and that's very small part of the revenue. Their biggest revenue is ads,
Yeah.
both Google and Facebook. And learning about trying to get demand for your product that you're selling, you know, using those two platforms are like, I guess some of the biggest, revenue generators for you. But at the same time, I think I've read one person who made, sort of $40,000-$50,000 worth of sale on one product, but then he
Wow.
spent probably almost just as much
Yeah.
in ads.
On the ads
So he
to
was
try and
saying to
sell
me,
them.
yeah, like I said, I guess what he was saying was that he basically made maybe only 10% of that in profit,
Yeah.
and the other 90 is just operating costs. So you can imagine,
Incredible.
like, although yes, to be honest, he probably did no physical work because it's all drop shipping stuff, right? But in order for him to create the demand for that product, he still had to spend a lot of money on advertisement.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing in 2020 is probably since I guess the 21st century is all about making you feel like you want that product.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? You don't need it. Who needs a fidget spinner? But that bloody thing was hot for
Oh yeah.
for a bit.
Everyone
Nobody
had
needed
one,
it.
so I had to have one.
I had one.
I know. I found one on Kickstarter, and then it took before the trend started, and then it took that long to develop it, and the trend had finished by the time it got delivered. It was great. It's
I think
hilarious.
I'm pretty sure I bought one off a wild store. So we were busy visiting one of our wild stores, and
cool.
I thought I'll support the franchisee that was operating. And by the time I got it, it was like $3.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like I think in the beginning of it, they were selling them for like $15-$20. When you couldn't keep them on the shelf because everyone was buying one. But that's what I mean. You can imagine that product has no actual uses. You know what I mean? Like in terms of there's no needs for it.
Yeah.
But somehow somebody generated a demand for it through social media. I'm assuming it started.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see the direction demand goes in the future. One thing that I've thought about with advertising, when Google and the Amazons of the world become gateways to assumptions, especially with the voice activated. If I just hold my phone up and go, "Hey Siri, order me a pizza," and then it offers
I can help you find pizza if you turn on location services. Go to privacy settings, select location services, scroll to Siri and dictation, and allow location access.
But imagine doing that one day and a pizza turns up at your door because of what you've said, but then Google's making the selection for the pizza place.
And probably what kind of pizza based on your previous orders. Like I said, it's all about data mining. And I think that's what these days, and that's how companies can generate demand, basically, is use the data that you've provided for them for free.
Yeah.
And it's so different to, like back in before this whole social media era, where the demand is actually literally the product has to have a good enough function.
Yeah.
Right? That then people want it because it does its job. These days, it doesn't even need to do its job. It to be popular enough that you'll get it, which is just like crazy. I mean, I think another example is like the onesies, right? The onesies was one very popular product at one point. To be honest, it did not, it did not do its purpose very well in terms of covering you up or keeping you warm. Did not. It wasn't very good at that, but it was very popular because of its design.
Yeah. And even just the way people continue to use it. I wandered past my brother. He was doing an online trivia with friends, and he was dressed in an Eeyore onesie. I was like, "Oh, hi, Mitch." And trying to figure out, just the novelty of what it means, the way you perceive yourself. And the other thing that I've been thinking about just with demand is the price that goes with it. Like you mentioned the fidget spinner, the difference between $5 and $20 is how much people want them. But then we have things like diamonds and waters. We need water, but we want diamonds, as a classic paradox. So why do diamonds cost more than water when one's so essential, but one's such a luxury good?
Well, I think it's also, remember, this is what we're going to get to next week. It's also about the supply, right? Diamonds are not readily available from your tap, see?
Yeah.
And that's what you can, and then, they're naturally made in India. You can't go and force it to be made. I guess you can't I guess you can make fake ones.
Difficult and expensive.
Yeah, but the real ones, you have to get them from the ground, and that's why there's so much controversy around it. But that's what it is. It's also about the supply that comes into play a lot. Like if there's a lot of it, then then it doesn't become very very popular or very hot, right? Because there's a lot of it, like water, like you said, which is, again, all these things is very interesting. Like another example of where water, you're saying water is definitely essential, right? Yeah. But for whatever reason, how did water become more expensive than petrol? When petrol is definitely a more, I guess, should have been a more valuable commodity, right? Because it's based from from oil, and yet water, we can sell a bottle of 600 ml of water for, I don't know, $3 in our shop. And yet at the moment, petrol is going for less than $1, or just about $1 at the moment. How did that happen, right? For a liter, where we're paying $3 for 600 ml of freaking water. So it's all about the supply side come into play, I think, when it comes to the demand as well. Like, did you hear about how Nintendo purposely short their supply just so that they can charge a lot more for the product, or just generate a big want for it. I said, did you hear about that?
Yeah, I don't remember that one, but I can imagine when you start moving supply and demand around, you drive price direction.
Yeah, so I mean, Nintendo wasn't doing it for price sake, but I think they're just doing it for the sake of keeping it a popular product for a lot longer. Like, I think they did that with the Wii. So the Wii was one, I think surprisingly very popular product. They could not keep it on the shelf. But by doing that, they were able to then sell the Wii for a lot longer, rather than them just releasing as much as they possibly could. Yeah. And then the interest would just wane a lot quicker.
A lot more quickly.
And then people would then stop buying it because the novelty would have worn off a lot quicker, where they kept the demand, or they kept the supply very short, which kept the demand for it a lot longer.
Sounds like it's flattening the demand curve, stretching it out.
Exactly.
Longer amount of time.
Very relevant. But yeah, they did, and then they repeated it again with the Nintendo Mini when they released those little mini consoles of theirs. They purposely made very short amount of them, and anyway, goodness gracious, the secondhand market was crazy.
Yeah.
People were, Nintendo was selling them for $99, and the secondhand market was selling them for like $300.
Yeah.
Just because of that, they purposely made less of it, even though the parts were really available. It wasn't like they couldn't make them in the factories, but it was they were just doing it on purpose, which is like, again, another very clever thing that companies can do with supply and demand.
Yeah. And one of the other practical reasons that we're doing this topic today is it's something I've been thinking about as we've been sharing our journey of trying to figure out what it looks like to start an e-commerce store. I managed to find 10 candles, add wax seals to them, and put them online on my e-commerce store just in time for Mother's Day. So I thought that would create demand in terms of there's timing and need to buy a gift, especially in the last 24 to 48 hours, if people haven't purchased them yet. But so far, I'm wondering if I haven't quite hit the mark. I haven't sold a thing. Do you have any thoughts about what demand looks like for something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got the timing correct, definitely. So you got that right. But I don't know about I haven't seen your marketing material yet. So I don't know, were you very specific? Were you very targeting?
And I guess that's one thing I've started thinking about. It was as simple and as cheap as possible, posting on Facebook to people I already know.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That is correct. I mean, like I said, you can always start with the cheap. I mean, that's what we're doing as well at the moment here with me and my wife. We're not doing any paid advertisement yet, but at the same time, you need to make sure your ads do have the things in it to target those guys. So, did you make Mother's Day things with it, or did you just mention you had an online shop and you were selling candles, or did you actually make it? So that you also did you have imagery?
Yeah, so I tried to give specificity to it. I asked questions. Are you ready for Mother's Day? Do you still need to buy a gift to create an internal question of demand of I need to still do this thing? Mm-hmm. And also then gave them a link to my shop as a way to solve that problem. And then as a follow-up, had limited stock to let people know, because I've only got 10 available, and tried to give them a time frame to order it. If they order by Friday, I can deliver it Saturday in the Sydney metropolitan area. So trying to, give the value of they'll get it before Mother's Day if they taken action in a certain amount of time, and I had pictures of what it looked like with the wax seal handle. I tried to tick the boxes that I thought I needed to create demand.
Well, again, then potentially we could then look at your market size.
Yeah.
Was your market size too small, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
how many people do you actually have on Facebook that is in your local area that you could get the bloody thing to by Saturday? Probably not many.
Because I started contemplating what Facebook ads might be like. So I might have 300-ish people following me on Instagram and 700-ish on Facebook, but maybe only a fraction of those are in and around Sydney. So
Correct.
that pulls that population size down of the people that I've shared the offer with, when in reality, if I went down the path of a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad, I might be able to have a larger amount of people I can share it with and have a greater degree of specificity of, I'm not sure, I need to look into Facebook ads to see just how I can target it. I know I can do geography, but could I have a filter of, they still need to buy a Mother's Day present as one of the ways to narrow it down and try and have scalpel like precision or a laser like focus into sharing it with that person who needs it.
From what I've already read on and looked at, you can definitely get super specific. I know, like I said, geolocation is just one very, very small filter, but then there's other things in there. You know what I mean? Because remember, Facebook knows all the things you like, so you can use like I guess topics that they tend to look into. So Mother's Day will be a big one. So if you look at Mother's Day, then you're definitely gonna get. Then you're gonna you can narrow down your size, right? But there's so much stuff. It's I think it's a study of its own. Like to look into Facebook ads. It's crazy.
It could be a topic for another episode down the track. When
well, I think so. I think
journey.
once me and you start, once we both start looking into it and start actually, playing around with all the buttons and all the check boxes and all the filters that you can do.
The tech
definitely want to do. Yeah, we definitely want to give away some tips on that. Definitely, more than happy to. Like I said, I think these days, if I could share knowledge, I would share knowledge, because I feel like then I'll be useful to the world, I suppose.
Yeah. And in terms of your journey and where you're up to thinking about what your e-commerce store looks like, what are some of your thoughts around the demand side? What's percolating in your mind at the moment?
So for me, I think initially I just wanted to go, nice and quick, do drop shipping of product that people already sell. But then I quickly realized, look, I mean, I could do that and probably stumble up. But what I don't want to do is start doing that and then feel like it didn't work out, or I guess I just have no passion for it. I just feel like there's no real art to it. So I've gone down to I'd rather go down to the more branded route. So I want to find an actual product that I endorse or I use or I create, right? Depending on which way we go. And I'd rather sell that and just sell something that is readily available. Anybody else can buy from AliExpress or Alibaba and sell off. So we looked at things that I have a bit more passion about. So, my culture and I guess my origin, right? Where I was from, I have a lot of interest in that. And I thought that's one thing that is definitely a lot, not as I guess, common out there in terms of, I looked at the competition, I looked at other shops that are doing the same thing, and you know what, there's not many. So there's definitely a niche that I want to get into, and that's what we're going to start building. All I'm waiting for is just the ability to get stuff from there to here.
Yeah. And then,
so I'm waiting for that to open up.
Yeah, and then that'll help be something we'll expand more next episode as we start talking about the supply side of things. But what do you think the appetite for demand is like in Sydney, Australia?
I think Australia is definitely a target market. I want to target. I don't want to do international just yet. I think that'll probably be something that I'm keen to look into. But just from Australia alone, the way I've been looking at it is I looked at Facebook and I looked at Facebook, eBay, Amazon, right? And looked at the particular products that I'm thinking of. Surprisingly, there's a very well, like I said, the demand of the base product is there.
Yeah.
I can definitely see lots of reviews on Amazon, people buying it, people are giving very good reviews. But what I don't see is the variety.
Yeah.
So they've got very, very minimal variety, because I think that's just culturally what they used to, in terms of the demographic that I've looked at here. Now we've got the variety, but it's just there's not many ways of getting it here at the moment. So you can't go to a shop and buy it yet.
Yeah.
For the kind of like, you know, different colors or different style, right? And I think that's what's holding the product back. It's just that there's not many availability. And I looked and I just could not find somebody who's selling, you know, the different design, different colors, different fits, right? Different cuts. Let's just say it's like jeans, right? Jeans is one, you know, very high level product, but then there's many different types of jeans. And that's why some jeans can sell for $20, some jeans can sell for $200. And they both probably have made from the same material.
Yeah.
But it's just about the variety. And I think that's what we're trying to get into, is the variety and the exclusivity of it.
And I love that you can see the need and that there's a problem in the lack of variety, and that you've got the entrepreneurial drive to find out, how can I solve that? How can I satisfy that demand? So it'll be really interesting to see how that grows and develops.
Exactly. So that, again, we can definitely you know, dig into that in especially in the next episode. I'm really keen to speak about supply, because that's something that we've been working on. So it's interesting. Like I said, this is, you know, look, me and you, we've been in retail for a long time now. I've been in retail for a lot longer, of course.
Yeah.
I think I've got like another 10 years on top of that.
Yeah, you've probably been in retail as long as I've been alive. Almost.
I think I started working in retail when you were probably, yes, you probably have, you know, before you started kindergarten. So I definitely have a lot of I have a lot of experience in that, but at the same time, we both have zero experience in being an entrepreneur yet. So we're both just starting in that journey. So, but I think there's a lot I've learned.
Yeah.
I wish I learned a lot more from the buyers, but you know, obviously we don't work with them as closely as we want to. You probably do. So I'm keen to kind of, you know, get some of that knowledge from you, Jimmy, in terms of data analysis. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, I love that. And it's an interesting kind of process to start thinking about. Of, you have to have data to analyze, to have insights that translate into actions. You have to have things that are being done. And I'm still working on that puzzle piece of, if I can't sell anything, I don't have any data to analyze.
Yeah. The chicken and the egg problem?
Chicken and the egg.
Yeah,
that's have one thing before the other.
Correct.
Well, the stores are shut. There's no reporting to be done.
That's true. 100%. But at the same time, remember, W.H. Smith also started as this one shop in Australia situation. So they had no data to begin with. I think, but in the beginning, we were literally throwing anything at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, and see
I can tell you that from when we started this company, we were selling baby formula. We were selling nappies. We were selling, I can't remember, some of the more weird crap that we were selling in the beginning. Like, you know, we were selling things that definitely do not relate to travel, or kind of relate to travel. Yeah. But they were just trying to see what sticks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the experience and experimentation and seeing how that plays out and what people buy and how people vote with their wallets is a really fascinating part of the journey.
I know. It's very interesting. You can go super broad or you can go super niche. I think both have their pros and cons. And in terms of the demand, I think the niche is you definitely get more demand when you find the right product. With broad, you're getting not as much demand, but you can get small demands of many different things.
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting thing to explore. And I think both of us are going down the niche route.
Yeah.
Because we don't have capital to go down the broad route. We can't go and start chucking 1,000 products and see what sticks. Because I just feel like I could do that, but I just don't have the passion for it. And I want to do something that I'm quite passionate about. And I think what me and Eva, my wife, is looking into is what we're both very passionate about. And we have I said and like I said, look, we'll talk about it more next week in terms of supply. Keen to share that story, but yeah.
Thank you all for listening in today. Thank you for continuing to join us on the journey. Wanted to just say a shout out to Bully, who gave us some great feedback a few weeks ago. if you're still listening, Bully, we'd love to hear that question you were thinking about asking. And if any of you who are listening at the moment have questions, feel free to ask them in the comments now or after you listen back to this. Would love reviews on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
Let us know
I
what you
think
think of
that's
Kitchen Conversations. Anything to say,
correct.
Rama?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that I want to see some of those. Like I said, I want to see in Apple Podcasts or in Spotify. I want to see some of those stars being filled up. You don't have to write anything. You just give us a couple of stars. That would be great. I mean, any feedback, positive or negative, we would love to hear. I think that's the only way we can make the show better.
And you can ask us things about the journey we're on, and we can address that in a greater level of specificity. Thank you again for tuning in this week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and remember to follow the government guidelines. Bye, guys.
Bye.